Hi everyone. So in this video, I'll be outlining, some main things from Lab 2, things to watch out for, and kind of giving you a short overview on how to use the Chem Collective Virtual Lab. So in this lab is where you'll first use Chem Collective. You will use it down the line in the rest of your labs in a few of those, okay? So you will visit this again and it will be useful, I promise. So in this lab, you'll be doing some density calculations and a virtual experiment where you actually find out the density of two liquids, and then you'll be completing some dimensional analysis problems. So dimensional analysis, it's a vital concept for the rest of chemistry for 1405. Not only 1405, but if you end up taking general chem, 1 and 2, it's also very important for that. And it's just useful in daily life, honestly. Like, you can convert things once you understand dimensional analysis. So once again, I linked the chapter if it's useful for you to know where and what is being referenced. But here's our lab assignment link. I'm in the lab material folder and then lab 2, and then here's the actual assignment link. Down here I have the pre-recorded videos, the optional videos, right, which show you and they show you, how to complete overall these problems. Not exactly the same ones all the time, but very similar usually. So, if you want to watch them before you complete the lab, it'll be a good refresher. Or even just listening to them, I think is useful. Like, how when you listen to podcasts, I like listening to podcasts, and sometimes I feel like, it sparks my brain up for things sometimes. But anyway, they're optional, but hopefully for sure you're watching at least this video. Some of these are repeated from your lecture videos as well. So if you watch them for your lecture, then, you don't need to rewatch them. Just like, you're not forced to do that, okay? So once again, instructions here. Familiarize yourself with the introduction, with the objectives, with what's going on in the lab, and then watch the video, and then you complete the lab and upload it, okay? So I click here. This brings you to the attachments, which is where the actual handouts are. So I already opened up the PDF version, and this is how it will look. So we're going to learn about the concept and calculation of density, how you can use different instruments to measure density, and then we're going to practice some dimensional analysis. So once again, as I stated in the first pre-lab video, intro contains a lot of good information. It's a good summary of what you learned in lecture, for example. Like, if you already went through all this for lecture, then all of this is mostly just review, right? It's just summarized and condensed into a few paragraphs. Density is discussed in general, the overall equation, mass over volume, the different units for different, states of matter. And then here are some, this is a diagram showing you the different types of glassware where you can measure volume. Now, this isn't just measuring density, straight away. This is measuring the volume portion of it, right? And based off of lab 1, we learned how we can measure mass with scales, right? The triple beam balance with electronic analytical scales, which you completed. And then for volume, we learned about graduated cylinders, right? And also burettes. So this is kind of reviewing that. And then we get to, kind of the main portion of this density part of the lab. So in this lab, you'll be solving a blunder that a lab intern made. And what you need to do is measure the density of two different liquids. Like I said, I don't want to spoil things for you, so I'll let you read through this. But basically, you're measuring density of compound A and compound, they're both labeled compound A. They're actually two different liquids, but unfortunately, they got labeled as the same thing. So that's your job, to actually find the density to them, to figure out which one is which, okay? And then part 2, And then part 2, you are just completing some dimensional analysis problems you're practicing. So just a review on, what dimensional analysis is, how you perform it. You always want your unit, your original given unit to cancel out, and then you're looking for a different unit. So I give you some tables with a bunch of conversion factors. You're going to use them, so they're definitely useful. Some English to metric conversions. And here we go for the procedure for part 1, for the density portion. So what you're going to do, first, open up the lab. So you're going to click here. I already happen to click it in order to load the lab up. And if I ever figure this out, okay, there we go. So I loaded it up. It should load in any of the browser that you use. I would recommend Google Chrome. I always recommend Google Chrome. It's the best browser that's ever worked for me. Definitely not Internet Explorer. Who uses that anymore? But Google Chrome, the way to go. It always loads for me. See, it tells you Firefox or Google Chrome. So either of those. I would recommend just playing around first. So, practice, getting glassware on here. You can move it around. You can click on it. You can get some information from it. You have tools. You have a Bunsen burner. You have a scale. You can just bring things over just to see how this works. Okay. You can right click. You can take it away. Right click, remove. Right click, remove. You can, just play around at first. It's not a big deal. Okay. And then once you get the hang of, bringing things to the workbench, this is our workbench from the stockroom, I would go ahead and you can follow the instructions. So let's scroll back to the instructions. So you want to gather all of this first. Okay. Compound A1, compound A2. I promise you everything is going to be in your stockroom. So compound A1, compound A2, the glassware that you need, it's all here. You just need to find it, okay? And then you follow the procedure. Now, instead of walking you through it, because I want you to do that, I'm going to kind of give you an overview of what this data is about, the data that you're collecting. So table 1, masses and volumes. So these are different types of data that you're collecting, meaning some are masses, some are volumes. So the mass of the empty volumetric flask, you're going to write that here or, enter it here. Don't forget your units. Always, always do not forget your units. That's something that I look for when I'm grading. And then here is whenever you've already added the compound in. So you're going to add a certain amount of the compound into the flask. And I state that in the procedure, how much exactly to add. Okay. So, and then you're going to record the volume. And this part always confuses, sometimes it confuses students. I'm not sure why. I think maybe students think I'm asking like a trick question. No, it's not a trick question. So the volumetric flask, it'll tell you how much you're adding in. So however much you added into that line is the volume. So it's not a trick question. Very straightforward. Just record the volume. Okay. You're going to do that for all these 3, for both compound A1 and compound A2. So it's repetitive, but that's what we do in science. We want things to be reproducible. So from there, you're going to find the compounds by subtracting the empty volumetric flask mass from the volumetric flask plus the compound, right? Because if you subtract that away, then that gives you just the compound. And then from there, you're going to show your calculations of you calculating the densities for both compound A1 and compound A2. Please make a note of which one was a neurotoxin and which one was a preservative. And that goes back to the intro section. So you have to refer back to know which one is which. From there, you will complete the applied exercises. I do want to lessen a little bit of the load of, completing all of these. So you just have to pick two, for example, on this number one of the applied exercises. So you pick two of these four problems, show your work, okay? Show all sig figs, show all your dimensional analysis, show everything. That's what I want to see, that you work through those. And then number two, again, it's a lot of them, but I only ask you to pick four of the problems. So pick whichever four you want. It's up to you. And then show me that you converted them using dimensional analysis. So that's what I'm looking for in this lab. As always, if you have any questions, just let me know. Again, don't be afraid to play around with the virtual simulation lab. It's not a big deal. You can just refresh, if you think you messed something up. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions at all.